episode, we'll be breaking down our Week 2 picks, as well as beginning our Week 2 hot takes and Week 2 fantasy players of the week, just like we did last week for Week 1. Week 1 was a lot of fun, and we're expecting just the same amount of action from Week 2. So without further ado, let's get into our Week 2 leaders from our Pick'em group to shout you guys out. And then after that, we will be getting into the picks. So at the top of the list, we got Dome Patrol. He went 14-2, the lone 14-2 player in this group. Then Cooper and Ty tied at 13-3 for second place. Then Hammer in fourth at 12-4. And then Sterb and I think are both I'm at 12-4 with Hammer. And then Sterb is down here, tied for 14th at 11-5. So
it's a long season.
Rough start, but yeah, there's always able to bounce back there. Moving into Week 2, starting off with Thursday Night Football, we got probably one of the best matchups of the week here. The Commanders taking on the Packers. The Commanders-Packers game, this is a little bit of a banged-up team going to this game for the Packers. Brenton Cox is out, Bo Melton is out, and then there's 5 questionable players as well for the Packers. Micah Parsons is on there, but we anticipate that he plays in this one just like he did last week against the Lions. So for me, I think the Packers, yes, they're banged up. Hammer was downplaying it, right? Like he's like, oh, we might not win. We're a little bit banged up. But I still think the Packers are a level above the Commanders through and through. I think they're a tier above them. I think the Packers should come to this game. I know the Commanders they beat the Giants pretty badly, and their D-line looked really good in that game. And, you're beating Russell Wilson-led Giants. I don't think that's overly impressive in my opinion, whereas the Packers went and absolutely demolished and shut down the Lions, who are a better team all around. So I'm going to have to go with the Packers here. I don't know the spread off the top of my head, but I would give them at least probably 7 points if I was picking the Packers here in this one. What are your guys' picks?
Yeah, I'm going to go with the Packers as well. I think Micah will play, and I think it'll be a close game, like you said, probably a 7-point game.
Yeah, Sterb, what about you?
Yeah, I think this one does probably get over a touchdown for me. I just think the Packers are, getting into gear of being an elite regular season team and, showing that they're like a true top contender. So the spread is 3.5. I probably have them winning by about 8 or 9. I'm going with the Pack here.
Yeah, I think Hammer will be happy to hear it as well. Moving on to the Browns, Ravens. Who's going to be your guys' pick here? Or Sterb, you're up for your analysis. What do you got?
Yeah, so the Ravens looked pretty there's not a lot of analysis to do here, but Ravens looked like pretty unstoppable for a large majority of that game. I was legitimately thinking to myself, like, this might be like one of the greatest teams ever. And then Josh Allen went supernova and they lost the game. So Ravens are still atop my power rankings, and they get the Browns here. The Browns offense was kind of interesting last week, like way more interesting than I thought it was going to be. You had Joe Flacco, who I don't have like the highest hopes for, especially in the long term. But this offense was legitimately put together with like literally gum and toothpicks, like 3rd, 4th round picks, Harold Fannin and Dylan Sampson. It's balling. It was both balled out. They were balling. They were absolutely balling. And it is against the Bengals defense, we'll get to that later, but absolutely awful. But I just really think when you're going up against a defense as talented as Baltimore's, it's really like a whole different level. So I don't really think this one's going to be close. Last time I checked, I think the Ravens are minus 900. And I'm gonna have to lock this one up for the week as well.
Okay, so this is Sterb's. The first lock of the week goes to Sterb with the Ravens. Ty, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, like I said in my power rankings, I just think, the Browns are obviously a bottom feeder, but they're just going to be frisky all year long. Like, they made that game with the Bengals a lot closer than it should have been, especially with this being an interdivision game. I would not be surprised at all if this ended up being like a 24-17, like some type of a close game where the Ravens just stumble after, kind of going crazy in that first week. So I'm going to take the Ravens here. I'm not going to take them as my lock, though. I don't feel confident enough in that team.
Yeah, Ty, same boat as you here. I'm going to go the Ravens, but definitely not locking this one up. You never know with these AFC North matchups. Shit could hit the fan really, really quickly, just like it did last week. And Harold Fannin and Dylan Sampson, shout out to those guys. They're balling out, good rookies and great dynasty pickups as well. Moving on to the Jags Bengals, a second battle of big cats now moving into week 2. So Ty, what are your thoughts on this one?
Yeah, I'm surprised. Like in the ESPN pick'em, 91% of people have picked the Bengals, and I thought, maybe after how bad their offense looked last week, right? I think they had 141 net yards on offense.
It was rough.
And then the Jaguars obviously looked pretty good, but opponent wise, like the Panthers are not going to be a good football team. Didn't look great last week, but I think that probably plays a factor into this all. And I think a lot of people, probably expect Cincy to kind of get back on track, right? Like they were one of the best offenses in the NFL last year. They bring back a lot of guys. I doubt that is going to be continuing to happen where they cannot even put up 200 yards. So I think the offense starts to kind of get back on track this week against a defense that's like fine, right? Jacksonville, I think they're a decent defense, but and to the flip side, right, offensively for Jacksonville, Trevor Lawrence just struggled a lot last week. I think, he had like a fine game, but there was just moments where Brian Thomas Jr., there's just got to be balls that he's putting on guys, right, and he's just kind of missing them. The big story of the game was just the ETN, kind of going off and kind of carrying them offensively. But, Cincinnati's, despite not being a great defense, played pretty well against the run. They only allowed 49 total rushing yards, 2 yards per carry, right? So the 49, right, that could mean anything, but 2 yards per carry. Sampson, we talked about him. He had a good game. Obviously they don't have the most athletic quarterback, but I still think, like with Trevor Lawrence not being a huge concern, the passing game not being a huge concern, that plays a big factor. So I'm going to go with Cincy here. Just because I think that the offense gets back on track and they can stymie this Jaguars offense just a little bit.
Yeah. I'm gonna go the Bengals here as well. I'm not gonna put a lock on it or anything because I think the Jaguars could somehow pull it out. But I think the Bengals team, they bounce back a little bit going into this one. They're always a slow starting team. Maybe this offense picks it up a little bit. I'm gonna go the Bengals here in this one as well. Sterb, who do you got?
Yeah, I'm picking Jacksonville here. To me, this is kind of a coin flip game, and coin flip. I'm down in the pick'em. Kind of need a little bit of volatility. I'm going to the other side of where you guys are going. I'm zigging while you guys are zagging, and as well, it's the early season Bengals. So
yep.
I can't really take this team seriously until like October. So I'm happy taking Jacksonville here. If it's only going to be 9% picked on ESPN, I'm seeing right now.
Sturbs is a Jags lover though, low key too, right? He had him drop.
I didn't think it would end up this way, man. I didn't think it would end up. I guess I am.
Yeah, he's a big Jaguar stand here. But Sturb, they are an underdog. He's gonna be your underdog pick of the week. Or are you saving it?
Nope. I'm saving it.
Saving it for later. All right. Moving on to the Giants Cowboys. This is an NFC East matchup that usually is a little bit more fun, but I think this time around, right? Cowboys. We obviously saw it against the Eagles. Although Jalen Carter was out, they looked pretty solid on the defensive side of the ball against the Eagles offense. I think they looked better than people expected. And I think that their offense looked good. Albeit without Jalen Carter on that defensive line for the Eagles, their offense still looked good. And it took CD dropping about 3 to 4 balls that were pretty easily usually caught by him. So if he didn't do that, I think the Cowboys could have possibly beat the Eagles. And I think that the Giants are a much worse opponent than the Eagles. And I think that the Cowboys defense should be able to handle the Giants offense enough to be able to get this win. So I'm going to go with the Cowboys here, beating Russ and possibly sending Russ to the bench forever the rest of his NFL career. So what do you guys got in this one?
Yeah, I got Dallas too. And I agree. Like this should be the last game that Russ plays. I mean, last week he looked terrible. I think Dallas's defense is fine enough, right? They looked decent against Philly that they're going to bang him up too. They need to bring in Dart. That's the only way that some of their options like neighbors are not going to be pissed off week after week. And Dallas's offense, especially in that first half and before the lightning delay, looked really, really good. So just hope CD can get back on track. But yeah, I'm going Dallas. And actually, this is one of my locks. Dallas over the Giants. I just don't think the Giants. I don't think they can score.
I did forget to mention this is my lock of the week as well. So that I should have dropped the hammer before Ty, but it's whatever. This is my first lock of the week as well. Sterb, who do you got?
Yeah, I'm not going to lock it, but I do have Dallas here. The Giants passing game kind of banks on like Russ throwing like deep balls to Malik Neighbors, but their offensive line like really can't hold up at all. So like their avenue to wins is kind of just like, can the defensive line just make it absolute hell for the opposing quarterback? And in Dallas, like Dak has shown the ability to like process at a high level, make checks, get the ball out quickly. So I think this could be a pretty big Dak game. As well as I think you get a little bit more from George Pickens, more than just like a DPI call. But yeah, I'm going with Dallas in this one.
And we might see Jaden Blue this game too.
That's that could add something to the offense. But what about Cam Scatterbo, guys? Come on, Cam Scatterbo. He's going to be great for the Giants, right?
Not over Purdue legend Tyrone Tracy.
Doesn't matter when your quarterback's Russell Wilson.
Yeah, you're right. It does not matter. I do love seeing him laying his body out on the line, but I feel like he's going to be feeling it.
He should have let Russ get killed.
He was putting his all into the pass pro. Maybe if he just let Russ go out, maybe Jackson Dart comes in and saves the day. Anyways, moving on to the Bears Lions. Sterb, what is your thoughts on this one?
Yeah, so while Chicago has the ball, we saw like that first half of the Chicago game. It looked like they had some answers. Like Caleb, he's still obviously up and down, even when it's structured for him under Ben Johnson, but. We saw the offense look pretty decent besides the run game. The run game is pretty concerning with DeAndre Swift. I know he'll be good for, 1 or 2 runs a game where it's like, oh, this guy's really good, right? And then the other runs, it's just like he's doing nothing, constantly putting you behind the sticks. And then, on the other side of this ball.
Hold on, Sterb. Ty has entered a blackout, guys.
Dude,
what has happened?
I don't know. You got to figure this out.
Ty is in a blackout, but I just had to shout it out for the YouTube viewers. It's good. It's a good bit. Anyway, hey, Sterb. Continue.
He's in the void.
There we go. Jesus Christ. I thought I was about to be attacked.
All right.
Anyways, Bears Lions.
Yeah. So, and while Detroit has the ball, the Chicago defense was banged up. You're missing Jalen Johnson. You're missing Kyler Gordon. But it's still kind of stifled Kevin O'Connell in this Vikings offense a little bit. I know you have JJ McCarthy there getting his first start, but you got a lot of faith there in DA. I would think this could potentially be like a top 10 unit. And then Detroit run game looked pitiful. Like the coordinator concerns, losing both coordinators turned out to be like a pretty big deal. I was very concerned about them losing both coordinators because I thought both of them were very, very good. Aaron Glenn was great with the secondary, and then Ben Johnson, an offensive genius, right? And then you lose Ragnow and Zeitler. Apparently that does a lot for your run game. And I'm kind of glad that like we're coming down to earth a little bit with the Goff discussion, and we see that he is prone to these meltdowns as well. I have a lot of faith in DA to be able to like cook up like some stuff that kind of confuses Goff, and I'm actually going to go with the Bears here. So what do you guys think?
Wow. Yeah. Is this your underdog, Sterb?
Right.
This is not my underdog.
Okay. All right. He's picking a bunch this week.
So I got more.
Ty, who you got?
Yeah, I don't know. I got Detroit in this one because I think I understand the concerns with the coordinator, but there couldn't have been a more perfect storm for week 1 to develop like the coordinator concerns, right? You go out and you have to play the Packers, who already is going to be a tough game. You got to play in Lambeau, and then they go get Micah Parsons. Like, I don't know. I think it was going to take some time, 3-4 weeks for them to really settle in with the new coordinators. I'm not really that concerned about Chicago, honestly. Like that meltdown was pretty bad. The run game is obviously like the weak point of Chicago's offense. And I think the strong point of Detroit's defense is that secondary. So I think that they'll be able to Hutchinson will get some pressure. They'll be able to stop Caleb. And I think Detroit, this is when they finally start to get things going right. I think they saw, okay, what we did week 1 against Green Bay was just god awful. It's not going to be as creative as Ben Johnson, but I think that's another factor in all this too, right? I think these Lions guys, like, they're going to be a little bit pissed off. They're going to want to beat Ben Johnson. So I'm going to take Detroit. I don't think it's going to be a great game. I still think Detroit's figuring it out, but Chicago is not at a point in time where I think that they can beat teams that are as talented as Detroit is.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. I'm going to have to go with Detroit here as well. I think for me, when you look at Detroit, right, yes, they struggled against the Packers, but I think the Bears are a much weaker opponent. I loved the Bears going into last week. I kind of thought they had a chance at beating the Vikings, right? I picked them. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Sorry, I cut out there for a second. My Wi-Fi went to shit. I'm in Idaho, so the Wi-Fi is not the best. Even though Sterb, no hate to Idaho, no hate. Sterb,
yeah.
I know Sturb's
a
local. Sturb's a local, but Idaho, the Wi-Fi just dropped on me. But anyways, the Bears, I was a big fan of them, but Caleb Williams looked terrific. I'm going to be honest. He looked really, really bad. If that continues throughout the rest of the season, I think they're looking for a quarterback at the end of the year. But I'm going to go to the Lions here. I think they bounce back. Like Ty said, not going to make it a lock or anything, but I think the Lions do beat the Bears in this one. Moving on to the Patriots versus the Dolphins. This is a fun one, Ty. A lot of analysis to give here. So what are your thoughts on this one?
Yeah, obviously the Patriots come into this week and they were very disappointing last week. I think Drake May played fine, but the running game was just absolutely abysmal. Ramondre Stevenson showed why he should not be a running back one. Henderson was fine, but I think he just needs to get more touches. Still some work to do on that offensive line too. But and then obviously on the flip side, Miami was god awful. 3 turnovers and allowed 418 yards. So I think that alone, kind of just pushes me in the direction of New England, right? Because I'm like, okay, even if New England can't run the football, which I really think they need to do, they need to establish a run in order, that's the Mike Vrabel way, in order to continue to win against teams that are far better than Miami. I think Drake May alone, just in the passing game, could carry this team to a win. Like I said, 418 total yards is insane. On the flip side, right, no Christian Gonzalez, again, is probably going to be the case. He wasn't practicing today, so that's kind of tough. But like I said, 3 turnovers, 2 of those were to his picks. I'm not really concerned about this offense. They couldn't run the football either, and it's just I forget the stat, but they didn't even have, I think, 50 rushing yards, and it was really low yards per carry too. So you just know that the Vrabel defense is going to be tough. They obviously made a lot of additions up front. I just think they kind of ran into a team in Vegas that is going to be a lot better than maybe a lot of people expected to start the season. They could be one of those that last wild card spot, or they're just in a tough division, so it's going to be frisky. But they looked pretty good too. So I'm going to go with New England here, simply because Miami is just so goddamn bad, and New England's got a ways to go, but they can handle a team like this.
Sterb, who do you got in this one?
Yeah, I got New England as well. I mean, just it's pure vibes in Miami. The vibes are just all time bad. You got Xavier Howard coming out and saying Tua wasn't really that great. I forget what that exact quote was, but he basically just down talked Tua after the game. And then, you had Storm Duck as your cornerback one, and he's out for a couple weeks now. So I looked it up. They're starting Jack Jones, who had that 1 pick six a couple years ago, then hasn't really done anything. Rasul Douglas, who's 30, and then their third corner, he's white, Ethan Bonner. So he might be seeing a white corner start in Miami.
It's actually
so shout out for that, but going New England here.
White corner representation is what we love to see on this podcast. But I got to go with the Patriots here. The Dolphins look terrible. I like you said, Sterb, vibes are horrific. I think it continues to go down that way. And this ship could truly be sunk by week 8, week 9. Everyone could be gone, fire sale, coach, players. It could get really, really ugly, really, really quick.
Yeah, moving on we'll say per the rules, this is plus 100. It feels like I'm taking a little bit of an out with the underdog. It's plus 100 for New England. So I'm going to make it my underdog pick of the week, even though it feels a little scummy.
All right. No, it's Sterb's doing whatever he can to climb the rankings.
Yeah, he's got to come back up somehow. But anyways, moving on to 49ers Saints. This one, I wouldn't recommend anyone watch it, right? It's going to be Mac Jones versus Spencer Rattler. The offenses are going to be pretty mid. Defensive battle most likely, right? I mean, 49ers defense, Saints defense are both solid. And I think the 49ers offense and the Saints offense are pretty much going to be similar in what they can do with Spencer Rattler and Mac. So I want to see maybe CMC and Alvin Kamara kind of that battle. But outside of that, this game's not going to be much fun. That being said, at home against Mac Jones, I think the Saints defense will be able to stymie them enough. And I think the Saints can win. I think the Saints played solid against the Cardinals. And I think they somehow lucked into these injuries and somehow are going to win a game now. If you gave me Brock Purdy in this game and even George Kittle, I think the Saints would be screwed. But with the injuries, I think the Saints could win this game at home. So I'm going to go with the Saints here. Ty, what do you got?
Yeah, I got the Niners. I think, from what we've just seen with Kyle Shanahan and backup quarterbacks, he's been able to coach them up and get some productive play. Sam Darnold, CJ Beathard, right? It goes all the way back to when Purdy first, got
Mhm.
in when Jimmy Garoppolo went down. So I think Mac, who
Another backup
was a
QB.
first round pick, had some potential. He's looked pretty decent at times, right? Whether it be in New England or Jacksonville. I think that Shanahan can get him up to par to be a decent enough quarterback that he's better than Spencer Rattler in a quarterback battle. And I just think, at some point, right, with a healthy CMC, you got to see him kind of get, back to his full form too. And I just trust Shanahan more than I trust Kellen Moore, based on what I saw last week with how they handled Alvin Kamara. In case you guys didn't know, I lost my parlay simply because Alvin Kamara wasn't getting wide open touches when he's sitting in the flat. It's easy 6 yards, and Spencer Rattler is just going to Spencer Rattler. So maybe this is a hate pick, but I'm
Could be a
going
hate
with
pick.
San Fran. I really do think, though, that
We don't
Shanahan can
mind the hate
scheme it up
pick.
with Mac. So San Francisco.
Yeah, Sturb, as the other Saints fan, what are your thoughts on this one? What did you think of the Saints kind of last week?
Yeah, I thought Kellen Moore was just kind of bland and uncreative. Like
Yep.
Spencer, honestly, really wasn't that bad. I thought he was a little better than I expected. This Arizona secondary honestly looks like really good. So coming out of that week, like maybe they're just playing the Saints or whatever. But I honestly think like our wide receiver room is respectable to a level where if Arizona's showing out against us, I think it says more about them than it does us. But yeah, with this one, you really just have to like get Mac Jones to like a baseline backup level and then just run it through CMC.
Yep.
Maybe he gets injured or whatever, but that's honestly a decent chance. But I'm going to have to go with San Francisco in this one.
Hey, they traded for
Love it.
B-Rob for a reason too, right? So
This
maybe
is
he'll
true.
get some
Very
more
true.
run.
This is true. I want to see the CMC versus AK battle. I kind of want it to be a running back game. Get those guys involved. Get them the touches. Make it a fantasy matchup. You know what I'm saying? Get the fantasy players what they deserve. Anyways, moving on to Bills Jets. The Jets coming off of a rough loss at home versus the Steelers. Obviously, they just released Xavier Gibson after a month. That kind of led to that loss against the Steelers there. Anyways, Ster, what are your thoughts on this one?
Yeah, got the two best quarterbacks by EPA per dropback. Who would have thought that Justin Fields is the only one beating out Josh Allen? Yeah, it's week one, obviously, but yeah, the O-line looked really good against the Steelers.
Mm-hmm.
To be honest, like Membu was doing pretty much whatever you wanted to TJ Watt. So like I think Buffalo is going to have like a sneaky hard time stopping the run in this one. But it's really just a matter of when Josh Allen scores in like the first half, and then New York's going to start having to pass the ball a little bit. And this could like sneaky be a shootout game. Let me check the total here. Yeah, it's 46.5. One of the highest of the week, I believe.
I think they could reach it pretty quick.
Yeah, this could be a sneaky shootout game because like the Jets, they're solid defense, but they do want to play like a lot of man under Aaron Glenn, and you have some issues if you're playing man against Josh Allen because he's going to run all over you. And then on the other side, that Buffalo defense, I know they were playing against the Ravens, but
It's rough.
they really didn't look like they could stop much. So, yeah, I'm going to go Buffalo in this one, but it wouldn't like surprise me if this was within like a touchdown. So,
yeah. Ty, what are your thoughts? Who do you got?
Yeah, I'm gonna go Buffalo too. I just don't know how long like the Jets can continue to like keep up in like high scoring like 30, 40 point games. Like I do think that they can be a good team. I did pick their over on the wins in the beginning of the season, which it was low. It was 5.5, I think. But I just continuously like week after week, are they gonna be scoring 40 points? I don't necessarily know. And like Sterb said, right, if they're gonna be playing a ton of man, it's a recipe for disaster against Josh Allen. Not even just him scrambling, but him getting out of the pocket. Guys like Shakir are shifty enough that they can get themselves open because you're so focused on Josh as a weapon. So I'm just going to go with Buffalo because I think they are the better team. Their defense obviously didn't look great. I think the Jets, Breece Hall especially, I think he have a really good game. But I just think Buffalo ends up finding a way like they did last week.
Yep. Yeah. Nothing to add here. I think the Bills-Ravens game, it just kind of reflected on what we've said about the Bills before, right? Although their defense isn't the best, like they have the best player in the league at quarterback, and he's a guy that can absolutely carry a team back and just will a team to victory. So I see that happening if they start rough against the Jets. If they start off slow, Josh Allen will find a way. So I think the Bills come out and win as well. Moving on to the Seahawks Steelers, this was kind of like a fun matchup based off of last week's results. Ty, what are your thoughts on this one?
Yeah, honestly, I was shocked how bad Pittsburgh's defense looked last week. I mean, like Sterb said, right? Membu did whatever the hell he wanted to TJ Watt, who, was supposed to be one of the best edge rushers in the NFL. Ran all over them. The Jets ran all over them, 182 rushing yards, right? Breece Hall had a really, really good day. And I think that's going to be the key for Seattle, right? They obviously showed they wanted to establish the run. Sharps and Kenneth Walker got a lot of carries last week. They didn't have a ton of success. I think they only had 100 total yards combined. But I think that's going to be the Clint Kubiak way, is kind of run the football, yep, and then run a little bit of play action with Sam Darnold, very similar to what his dad did, in Houston and Denver forever. So I think, if they can establish the run, Seattle's got a good enough defense that I think, again, Aaron Rodgers at this point in time, is he going to be able to? It's very similar to the Jets defense or offense, right? Is Aaron Rodgers going to be able to throw 4 touchdowns, have a clean game every single week at age 41, especially given what we've seen from him in the last 4 seasons? I kind of doubt that, right? And I think a lot of it was like kind of a revenge game for him. He was on fire. He played well, right? But I think the Jets defense isn't going to be as good as we had maybe thought they would be in the beginning of the season. Or at least they have some ways to go under Aaron Glenn. The Seattle defense, though, kind of in that second half of last season, right, really started to rear up and buy into that, Mike McDonald defense. So I'm gonna go with Seattle here as my upset of the week, right? They forced 2 turnovers last week. Obviously, they had 2 turnovers, but I think and Pittsburgh had that 1 turnover on Xavier Gibson. I think at the end of the day, Seattle can win the turnover battle, and I think whoever wins the turnover battle in this game is going to be the winner, right? And I don't know, Pittsburgh not being able to make Justin Fields, who has in his career widely not been a great quarterback, make any mistakes and turn the ball over, was a little concerning. So Seattle's defense and I think running the football are going to be key to the game, and I think that's how they win.
Sterb, who do you got?
Yeah, Ty kind of read my mind there. I have the Seahawks for pretty much the exact same reason. I think it's going to come down to the turnover battle, and I have more faith in the Seahawks defense. The avenue for explosive plays for both of these offenses, given last week, I know that the Steelers had some, but it didn't really seem that sustainable to me. In like Seahawks, you really didn't see it. Most of their stuff is going through JSN. It was like a lot of the yards. I want to say it was like 90% of Sam Darnold's yards were to JSN. Ridiculously high amount, but yeah, it's just a matter of like, if someone does get like a few explosive plays in this game, then they're going to win. But I don't think there's many avenues to that. So I'm going to go with the turnover battle and the better defense in Seattle.
Yeah, not much to add here. I'm going to go with the Seahawks as well. I think the Steelers, right, they let Justin Fields kind of dice them up. And I think the Seahawks, I had high expectations going into last week for them. I thought they were going to beat the 49ers. And they probably would have if it wasn't for Jake Ton just making an incredible catch, beating the defender to the ball, high pointing it. But I think the Steelers, a lot of those touchdowns there were wide open, right? Like we see Aaron Rodgers, four touchdowns, whatever, but they're all wide open. And I think the Seahawks defense will be a little better and restrict Aaron Rodgers a little bit more this week. So I'm going to go the Seahawks as well.
It's shocking that all 3 of us took them at 14% of people on the pick'em on ESPN have picked them.
Yeah,
and
that's
they're
crazy. People hate the Seahawks.
Yeah. This is for me. This was my upset. It's like, is this really an upset? Like, I mean, it is.
Ty, we lost you for a second. Repeat that last sentence.
Oh, my bad. I said for me, this is my upset of the week. But like, is it really an upset? Like, in my eyes, no.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
very interesting.
Yeah, I think the public is pretty low on the Seahawks, and it's something interesting to see. But maybe the podcast just knows ball, and this could also just blow up in our faces that the Steelers come out and
maybe.
Yeah, I think we did. Well, Sterb, it's questionable. You're lower on that pick'em group, but no, I'm kidding. I think you'll bounce back.
I want to say one thing with Tonjes in one of my leagues. Someone put like 25% of their fab on Jake Doncic.
Yeah, it happened. Yeah, it's a thing. Hey man.
Apparently,
George
it's a
Kittle's
thing.
out.
Or just
George Kittle's out. So Jake Tonjes is going to be the answer. All right, he is the answer. So don't sleep on him. No,
Mac Jones to Jake Tonjes, man.
Yeah, it could. It's a league. That's a league-winning connection right there. Anyways, moving on to the Rams Titans game. This one, obviously, the Rams had a close battle with the Texans, and then it took Landman. I think it's what's his first name? Jake Landman.
I think
Jake Landman. Jake or Zach.
Yeah, he did it to the Saints in the training camp. He had in their joint practice. He had a punch out on Alvin Kamara, who rarely fumbles, and he did it again last week in a clutch moment. He punched out the ball to basically help them win. And I think that game was relatively closer than I expected. The Rams would kind of do a little bit better against the Texans in that one, but the Texans have a great defense. The Titans, right? He just came out and made the Broncos, and obviously the Broncos had some they shot themselves in the foot a good amount, but they shut the Broncos down on offense for a good amount of that game. And if they could do that against the Rams, they do have a shot. But I'm going to have to go the Rams here in this one. I know they're away, and I know that might hurt them a little bit, but I think they bounce back after their iffy test with the Texans last week. But I think their offense kind of comes alive in this one and bounces back a little bit. I'm going to go the Rams here in this one. Ty, who do you got?
Yeah, so I'm going to go with the Rams here, and I had them as my lock of the week. But like the more I think about this, like this could be a close game, right? Like you know, that Tennessee front was like very, very impressive to me. Coming in, I know some people were like talking about it as it being a good front, and then once you actually get to see it in game, I was like, okay, damn, these guys are pretty good. And then Cam Ward on the other side, like he's going to be a dog if he can get Calvin Ridley to catch a goddamn football. They might be in that game, but. I think the biggest factor, right, which was the biggest factor for Denver last week, is that front for the Rams, right? If they can force, not even force, but if they can get sacks and get some pressures on Cam Ward, it wasn't like he was making stupid mistakes. It was just driving the offense back because he was just kind of, maybe no one got open and he took a sack or. Just an incomplete pass down the sideline or whatever it may be. But, I think that is the true key to this game because I think Tennessee can slow down the Kyren Williams run game a little bit and cause some trouble for a less athletic quarterback in Stafford. But I just don't think can you still hear me? You look like you're laughing.
You pause for a second. There's a little slight lag, dude. The blackout at your part or your house is it's getting you.
Anyways, I think Cam can make this a kind of a close game, but I'm still going to take the Rams as my lock because I think just like Denver did last week, they'll be able to pull it out.
It's bold, but I like it because this is like one of those friskier games in my opinion. But I do like that they're making it the lock. Sterb, who do you got?
Yeah, I got the Rams in this one as well. Kind of like what you guys said, like Jeffrey Simmons and Tavondre Sweat is nothing to be taken lightly, but especially against like a Rams O-line that's, maybe still a little questionable, but, Puka and Devontae looked, especially Puka, like absolutely amazing. Like top 5 wide receiver in the league level if he keeps stacking those together. And it was kind of the exact same thing that I said last week. Like, oh, maybe we just kind of all overthought it. Like Stafford plays through injuries and they swapped out Devontae for Cooper Kupp. Like, of course, his offense is going to be good. They didn't put up a lot of points last week against the Texans, but it's the Texans. They got dogs all up and down the secondary and the front.
Built for defense,
yeah. And I'm just going to go with LA in this one. It's a more veteran team. It's just a better team overall. So
yeah, I like it. Moving on to the Panthers Cardinals. Now this obviously is similar, kind of like the Saints Cardinals matchup last week. It's a game that I don't see a lot of people watching, but Sterb, what are your thoughts on this one?
Yeah, this one probably not going to be that great of a game. Carolina had the worst defensive pressure rate. One of 3 teams without a sack. This is defensive stats, not offensive stats. They also allowed like a 0.21 EPA per rush. This could be the worst defense and the worst team in the NFL again. Mm-hmm. I see a lot of people putting the Saints at 32. Maybe a little bit of bias there, but I think this team is worse. I'm sorry. And like Bryce Young, he looks more like early career Bryce Young than he did second half of last season Bryce Young. I will say that T-Mac, he looks like a stud.
Yep.
J.C. Horn obviously has that big interception, but I think they had, I want to say maybe Trevon Merrick got banged up. Someone in their secondary, I believe, got banged up, or their back seven. And then, like I said, with this Arizona secondary, like they looked really, really good. Like you got Max Melton, you got Will Johnson now, and you got like kind of talent everywhere. It's kind of like a like B+ players everywhere on defense, which allows you to do a lot under Jonathan Gannon. You don't have that like stud player. Maybe you consider Buda Baker up there, but as a safety and the role he plays, there's not really much you can do to impact the game at that level. But I think this defense is honestly going to be pretty good. And with Carolina like not being able to get pressure, I think Kyler's in for a big game. And I honestly think like Marvin Harrison Jr. is in for a big game as well, because this game could be put away quickly. But I kind of think that the Cardinals kind of need to show people, that they're arriving. They can be one of these like high scoring offenses on a week-to-week basis. So I think I'm going to make. I'm considering making a Cardinals player my fantasy player of the week, but we'll save that for later. But I'm going to lock up the Cardinals for this week.
I like it. Ty, who do you got?
Yeah, I got Arizona too. I think, to Sterb's point, right? Like this defense is really good, but they're still, don't have Sean Murphy Bunting, don't have Walter Nolan yet, right? Like this defense is going to continue to get better.
Mm-hmm.
And this team is just, I think they're a wild card, possible team, right? Sneak in there in that 6 or 7 spot. And like he said, right, the offense should be in for a big day. I think this offense is better than Jacksonville's at this point in time. So they can't score, high 20s, 30 points. So yeah, I'm going to go with Arizona here too.
Yeah, I got to go to the Cardinals as well over the Panthers. I think the Panthers are the worst team in the league, or the second worst team in the league. I'll put the Dolphins below them off of last week's performance. But I think the Cardinals, we saw it against the Saints. I think people are kind of like thinking they're like Ty, like wild card team. I don't know. At this point in time, I'm a little iffy just because I think the Saints like shot themselves in the foot, and that's why that wasn't a game. Like they missed a field goal. They had 13 penalties. I think if either of those things don't happen, the Saints could have very well won that game. And obviously there was an interception called back for the Cardinals. I just think that game was really 50-50, and the Cardinals should have I think they should have won that pretty outright. But I'm going to the Cardinals here in this one over the Panthers. I think they should be able to beat the Panthers pretty easily here in this one. Moving on to the Broncos Colts tie, your team taking on the Colts, who just absolutely walloped the Dolphins. So a lot of people think that maybe the Colts are something. Maybe the Colts will kind of jump out at the Broncos, who started off slow against the Titans. What are your thoughts on this one?
Yeah. High on Daniel Jones having a good week last week, right? But it was mostly based on the fact that Miami is really, really bad team.
Yep.
So I think before we really jump into like the Danny Dimes, on that train, is we got to see how he plays against Denver, see how he plays the next couple of weeks. Right, but last week he has 3 turnovers. Last year against Indianapolis, he has 3 turnovers, and he had 3 touchdowns in that game. We ended up winning, and the defense played really well, right? But different quarterback, a little bit of a different scenario here on offense. I think Denver needs to establish the run early and often. Really didn't get going until like that fourth quarter when we had that huge RJ Harvey run, and then obviously Dobbins scored the touchdown, which I think there's a really good recipe for that to happen, right? The Colts allowed 6.5 yards per carry against the Dolphins last week. So, I think, it was limited carries and it was limited touches, but it was still like a lot. I mean, that is a large volume to be allowing on in the run game. So I think Denver's got to get that going. I want to see the wide receivers create a little bit more separation. I think that was sometimes why Bo was making, some bad throws. Like he was just kind of sitting back there, and especially on the interception of Sutton, right? I've seen this play on the all-22 like 15 times now. Marvin Mims needs to run a hard clear out, right? It's just some guys being lazy. I just want to see more receivers. It's good that Evan Ingram's obviously going to be back because he had 3 catches in that game before he left. And then defensively, right? Daniel Jones in his career has not done well when he gets sacks. When he gets pressured, he starts to panic. Last week, Miami has a very, very weak defensive line. They only had 1 sack on him, so obviously, he felt comfortable. But Denver's defense last year led the league in sacks. Obviously, he had a crap ton of pressures and sacks against Cam Ward last week, I mean, Nick Bonito alone had 9 pressures on him, which is absolutely absurd. So I think the recipe for Denver this week is, similar to Seattle, right? Play really good defense and run the football early and often. So I think I'm going to take Denver here. I'm not going to make any locks because I already used my 2 locks. But yeah, I think getting a lot of sacks on Daniel Jones is going to be huge, and he'll kind of come back down to earth.
Yeah, I'm going to go the Broncos here as well. I think the Colts, like you said, Ty, fall back down to earth. I think the Colts hype grew way too high after that game. I actually think we're overrating what the Dolphins are. This is not a good opponent that they just blew out. So, it's crazy is that the Dolphins scored 70 on the Broncos just a few years ago, and now we're here. But anyways, the Broncos should really easily beat the Dolphins.
Unnecessary.
Or the Colts. I had to bring that up.
Unnecessary.
Had to bring it up talking about it. But anyways, I think the Broncos win. Sterb, who you got?
Yeah, you guys might hate me for this one. I'm gonna go with the Colts here, and it's kind of just like a vibes pick. I'm not like a big Danny Dimes fan.
Just trying
to me,
Ty's gone, and Ty.
I'm sorry, Ty. I'm sorry, Ty.
Fucking absurd.
Oh no.
No comment. I'm quitting the podcast.
Okay. Here's my pitch, right? So I think that Bo, once you get pressure on him, you can say the same thing about Danny Dimes. This is kind of just purely a vibes pick for me, but I'm going to make my case for the Colts, right?
This is like selling a 2001 used Kia. Okay, this is
correct. But you got to drive it. I'm only driving this thing for 1 week. All right.
Okay. Yeah.
I'm gonna see how it goes. I'm gonna drive it for a week. We'll get there when we get there, right? So, Julian Arumo, he got blamed for a lot of stuff in Cincinnati. Mainly, I don't think it was his fault. And you get a more talented defense, like you get Cam Bynum, you get the front, which is actually really great. You get the linebackers, which are actually pretty good. And you cause some havoc. And Tua, doesn't do great under havoc. Bo last year against pressure was one of the worst quarterbacks statistically, and that kind of showed its end against Tennessee, right? So if we're going coach for coach here, Sean Payton obviously a better coach, Denver obviously the more talented roster. I kind of think the avenues for both of these teams are actually very, very similar. Indianapolis, I think, is going to be able to run the ball actually at a decent clip. Jonathan Taylor looked really good yesterday. He handled pretty much all of the work until it was a blowout and DJ Giddens came in. Shout out DJ Giddens, by the way. But it's really a matter of whose front gets home first and then who controls the game. And I'm going with this is our Colts, this is our team. I'm bleeding blue this week. Give me the Colts, baby.
Oh brother. I gotta say
it was even worse that you said the fight song.
Yeah. Dude, I'm pretty sick of the fight song. If I'm being honest, sorry, Colts fans, I can't do it anymore. I can't. The nay at the end gets me. The Arthur fist.
If they win, I'll nay. If they win, I'll nay next week.
Okay. All right. Yeah. And anyways, moving on to the Eagles-Chiefs game. This is the Super Bowl rematch, right? But it's kind of hindered by the Chiefs' injuries. I think that kind of limits the hype going into this game. But I think this is a really fun matchup to predict and talk about. So getting into this, the Eagles, right? They just went in. They lost Jalen Carter before the first play of defense, before the first real snap of the game. It was a special team snap, and he somehow spits on Dak Prescott, gets suspended for week 1, right? Which made no sense that it was a suspension, but it was a game that already happened, but it was his suspension. Anyways, the Eagles come out and they look all right. I think they should have looked better against the Cowboys, but they didn't really have to pass the ball, and they still won pretty easily here in this one. So I think the Eagles, right? Eagles, better team than the Chiefs by far, in my opinion. At this point in time, the Chiefs are without their 2 top receivers. I think Travis Kelce definitely took a step back. Kelce had his exact play. It was his fault they didn't score a touchdown and down in the red zone later in the game. He stopped running when he should have kept running. So that stopped momentum for the Chiefs possibly. And I think that I think that Kelsey, right, solid player still, but he's not the Kelsey he once was. Patrick Mahomes, really good, doesn't have a lot of help around him. It's kind of like the Bills, but with worse receivers at this point in time. Like they have Juju Smith-Schuster and Hollywood Brown. Like those are your two top targets. That's not who you want as your top two targets, in addition to Travis Kelce, of course. Their defense is still solid, but it didn't look very great against the Chargers. The Chargers had a lot of wide open receivers. The Eagles have better receivers, like A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith is a better 1-2 combo. So I'm going to go the Eagles here. I have a hot take about this game, but I'm going to go the Eagles here. This is my second lock of the week. Eagles over the Chiefs in this one, in the Super Bowl rematch. Sterb, who do you got in this one?
Yeah, I think how I think about Chiefs games is just kind of weird. Whereas like, what can the conversation be like after, and how believable is that to me? So I was gonna pick the Chiefs in this game just because you got Patrick Mahomes, right? But then afterwards, I was like, how crazy would it be if like Chiefs fans had another feather in their cap that they started 0-2 and then still went to the AFC Championship game, right? So I was like, okay, that kind of makes sense. Maybe poor analysis, but I'm going with Philly here. Like you just said, the defense is really concerning to me. Oh, and
we lost Ty. We'll see if we can get him back in, but if
he
not,
really doesn't like the Chiefs defense. Yeah. So this Chiefs defense is really concerning to me. Like the back end doesn't look as good. Herbert was dicing them up, and I think Herbert's a great quarterback, but still, even for his standards, like this still looked a little concerning for the Chiefs for me. And then run game was bad. Run game was just pure bad. Like Isaiah Pacheco and Kareem Hunt, they just look like they don't have juice at this point.
Yeah.
And then with Hollywood Brown being your number one, or maybe it's Travis Kelce, I don't know. Travis Kelce, I just think doesn't have it at this point in his career. And then Marquise Brown, I think he had like 10 targets. I don't know.
Stones for
like
hands
an
too.
NFL offense. What's that?
He doesn't have the best hands either.
No, definitely not. And then there he goes. All right, so
Ty, what happened?
I don't know. The house is falling apart. We lose the internet. We lose the lights. Now I'm on my phone. We're falling apart over here. And it's because we knew Sterb was going to pick the fucking Colts.
This is exactly what it was. Anyways, Sterb continues. Sorry.
Yeah, I just don't have a lot of faith in Hollywood Brown being a number one option and getting 10 plus targets in the big 2025. So I'm gonna go with the Eagles here.
Ty, at least he picked the Eagles here in this one. Who do you got?
Yeah, I'm gonna go with Philly here too. I just don't think by any means that the Kansas City can compete in some of these big games. With the way that they looked against the Chargers, there's the obvious play up in a divisional game. I just don't think they looked very good. Philly obviously gets Jalen Carter back. And I think he's going to be a real game wrecker for them. I don't think this is going to be close. Like, I was considering this being one of my hot takes. And I don't even really know if it's a hot take that, like, Philly kind of lays one on them and beats them by, like, double-digit points. And I really don't even think that's a hot take. Simply, partly because of the Chiefs' injuries right now, but it's just, I don't know.
All right, that was my hot take. All right, I was going to say 2 touchdowns. So if that's not a hot take, I'll think of one on the fly. I'll think of one on the fly. I'll think of one on the fly. No, you shit on it. All right, you took my hot take, you shit on it. So I'm going to make a new one in the next 5 minutes here. But move on from this game. The Chiefs, they suck. They're going to go 9-8. We all saw it coming, right? The prophecy. We all predicted 9-8. So, anyways, moving on from I did have a TikTok rage bait kind of 9-8 thing, but like looking at the schedule and looking at how things are falling, like the prophecy could come true. And if it does, I could look like a genius and have a victory lap online, even though it was a rage bait. So we'll see. Yeah. We'll see. Anyways, moving on from that to the Sunday night football game, we got the Foul Clowns taking on the Vikings. Sterb, who do you got in this one?
Yeah, so starting on the Atlanta side of the ball, where Atlanta is on offense, like they just got to run the ball better. Like their run game against Tampa was just really not good. Like Bijan kind of got stifled. Shout out to Ty there for the pick. That was one of his legs. And then Algier really didn't do anything either in the run game. I think they both averaged under 3 yards per carry. That just needs to be better. Michael Penix, he looked solid. He looked like he can step up in the big moments. He looks like a playmaker. He scrambled like a little more than I thought he would. I know he ran fast in the combine, but he really did not scramble a lot in college. And when he did, it was kind of like a 40 where he ran fast and kind of just in a straight line. But then you got a quarterback making I think it's his 5th or his 6th start against Brian Flores. Like, I'm probably going to go with Brian Flores there and just him making it hell on the back end for him. So, and then JJ McCarthy, again, kind of like the Bills Ravens game, the Chicago Minnesota game was a little similar where, one team looked to be more in control for, 95% of the game. And then I just think both quarterbacks, obviously different levels between Josh Allen and JJ McCarthy, but they both just put the team on their backs and, said, we're going to go win this game. And JJ McCarthy was a little more, he was a little more responsible for the Vikings being in that hole in the first place. But also the playbook felt like a little more closed in the first half of the game. And then we saw it open up more. And that's when JJ really thrived and made those big time throws. So I think we'll probably see more of that in this Atlanta game. And I'm going to go with the Vikings here because I think they have the better quarterback. They have the better head coach, they have a better defensive mind. So and I think they're at home in this one as well. So
they are home. Yeah. Ty, who do you got in this one?
Yeah, I'm going to go with Minnesota too, right? I think in that, third quarter on, Brian Flores really started to dial it up and made Caleb Williams uncomfortable. And I think he's going to, understand that might be what he needs to do every single quarter of every single game is dial it up and make some of these quarterbacks uncomfortable. And I think that's super important, right? Because Atlanta looked really, really good last week. Offense was kind of firing on all cylinders, even though they lost. Obviously not the run game, the passing game looked really good. So I think, Penix with his 5th start, right? Brian Flores is going to dial it up, make him uncomfortable. And, JJ, I will admit I was wrong on him. I thought he was going to suck. I said to you guys, and I think after that pick 6, wow, this guy might suck.
Yeah,
I went to bed.
He did suck. Yeah.
He did. Sorry, he did. And then I woke up. I went to bed. I woke up, and he threw 3 touchdowns, and they won the ball game. So, some of it is just he's got that winner's blood in him, that winner's mentality. I think that, he's obviously surrounded with really, really good talent. And you kind of saw what happened last week, right? For against, Tampa. Atlanta played a team that had a lot of really, really good talent on offense, and they lost that football game. So I think Brian Flores and just the talent on Minnesota's offense get this one done in Minnesota.
Yeah, give me the Vikings as well. I think JJ McCarthy got overrated, right, for that last second half performance. I think him winning NFC Offensive Player of the Week was absurd, right? I think he sucked in the first half and then had a good second half against a team that, right? Dennis Allen, good defensive coordinator. He struggles against quarterback runs, and we've known that. All the Saints fans know that, things like that. He will let you down on a QB that can run the ball late in the game. And it happened. JJ McCarthy ran for a touchdown. Whoop-de-doo. He hit Justin Jefferson a couple of times. This is what you're expected to do. When you are a Vikings quarterback, you have Justin Jefferson. You're expected to be able to hit him. And he finally realized he could utilize him as a target. That's what happened. And they finally started doing things on offense. I still think he played well. I'm not trying to downplay it, but NFC Offense Player of the Week is a little bit absurd. The Falcons on the other side, not the best team. I think the Vikings defense will be able to overpower them, and I think that's the reason they win. So I'm going to go with the Vikings here in this one as well. Moving on to Monday Night Football, Ty, what are your thoughts on this one?
Yeah, this one's interesting, right? Because Tampa Bay won last week, and it kind of was despite all odds. The time of possession was 11-minute differential. I think they had 8 less first downs. Just every aspect of their offense, I think they had 98 less yards as well. So every aspect of what they did was just lesser than Atlanta, except for scoring points, right? Obviously, they just pulled it out. And on the flip side, it kind of seems like Houston lost despite all odds, right? I mean, what are the odds that, your defense plays as well as they do, holds an offense like the Rams to 2 touchdowns, and then you lose the game because you only scored 9 points, right? With CJ Stroud at quarterback. So it does seem like against all odds. And, coming to this game, it's like, I feel like it's kind of a crapshoot, but I'm just going to go with the team that continues to win against all odds. Right, it's Tampa Bay, and I think I'm going to go with Tampa. I just think their offensive firepower will be enough to score enough points against Houston. And I don't know. Houston's offensive line right now, not great. They're relying on Nick Chubb, who has like 4 knee surgeries at this point in his career. And until I can see CJ Stroud and Nico Collins get on the same page, I just can't trust this team, right? Nico Collins did basically nothing last week. Obviously, maybe they get Christian Kirk back this week, so that's, another option for them. But, if your star receiver's not having a great game, you're not going to win many football games. So I'm going to go with Tampa here.
Sterb, who do you got?
Yeah, I got Houston here. I'm not really concerned with, a lack of like Nico Collins and CJ Stroud connection in week 1. Just because of the rapport that they've built up last season. Nico is outpacing pretty much everyone except Jamar Chase. So Tampa Bay, I think they ran a little hot and they really got away with one in Atlanta there. Baker had some scary plays and he also had some great plays, which is kind of just the Baker experience. But against a defense like Houston, I really think that's going to kind of come to light. And it's going to matter more. I think Baker, has probably 2+ turnovers in this one. I would set the line at like 2, and then favorite a little 2.5, and then favorite a little towards 2. But this Houston defense is going to be able to get after them, and they're going to come down, they're going to hit. I just love this Houston defense, and then the O-line on Houston is obviously the big concern. Tampa Bay, like not the best pass rush, not the worst pass rush. It's really a concern of like, how well can they really run the ball with Nick Chubb? Because you got Vita Vea, and then I think their backup center might be in for Houston. So that's a big concern. I think they might be airing this one out a lot. And Nico Collins could be in for a bigger day. So yeah, I'm gonna go with Houston in this one.
Yeah, I'm going to go with the Bucs here as well. They're my underdog pick of the week. I think they come out and they beat the Texans. I didn't like how the Texans played last week. And I will say this, Sterb's he's going to have a little bit of a bias towards the Texans here because he did pick Nico Collins to win Offensive Player of the Year. So he needs them to start turning around to get him that award. But all things aside, I don't mind the Texans pick at all. I think they should be able to bounce back. I just think their O-line is struggling. I think the offense is struggling. And I think the Bucs offense will be able to kind of eke it out in a close one. And like you said, Sterb, I think like a 2, you said 2 would be a good line. I think that's kind of where I'm at as well. I don't mind that line as well. And I think the Bucs would cover, and I'm going to pick the Bucs to win in a close one here. Moving on to the second Monday Night Football game, we got the Chargers taking on the Raiders, and I'll try to speed run this because Ty is on the East Coast. I'm in Idaho, so we made Ty stay up very, very late, and he's work tomorrow. But anyways, I got the Chargers beating the Raiders. The Raiders are a solid team, right? We saw them go out, beat the Patriots. But the Raiders here missing Brock Bowers for this week, that's going to hurt their offense a little bit. They still have good weapons. Don't get me mistaken. I think Jacoby Myers and Geno Smith have a good connection, and he has a good connection with all of the receivers, it seems like. But I think the Chargers, we just saw Justin Herbert absolutely destroy the Chiefs in the passing game, and I think he'll be able to do that again. The trust that Harbaugh has in Herbert to do absolutely anything. People said that he can't do what Jalen Hurts does, and he did it and then more. Like he did more than Jalen Hurts does. He can run the ball at a very, very high level. He can pass the ball at a better level than Jalen Hurts. And I think he's a better leader than Jalen Hurts as well. As far as an offensive-minded quarterback goes, I think he can do a little bit of everything, and he can tell players what to do. He knows everything that's going on. And people say like Jalen Hurts does as well, but Jalen Hurts isn't he's not as big of an offensive weapon as Justin Herbert. So I'm going to go the Chargers beating the Raiders in Las Vegas in this one. Ty, who do you got?
Yeah, I'm going to go with the Chargers here as well. I think it could be a close game because Pete Carroll, obviously, a very good coach. He's going to keep his team in the game. And just shockingly, right, the defense didn't look too bad. Guys like Devin White, Jamal Adams, are they kind of reviving their career? But like you said, no Brock Bowers. That's obviously a huge loss. Jacoby Myers, my fantasy underdog, one of my fantasy underdogs for the season, looked really good last week. But it's just, until Gentry's kind of playing at a superstar level, or Brock Bowers is back healthy, this team's just going to be hard pressed to beat teams as good as the Chargers. Chargers, looking to maybe ramp up Najee Harris this week too, from kind of what Harbaugh has said. I don't think they were as impressed with Hampton last week. He looked fine, but obviously Najee needed some time to work back into the offense too. So I think the Chargers win this one, probably maybe by like 10, 14 points. I don't think it's like that much of a blowout, but I don't think it's like really that close of a game either. So Chargers.
Yeah, like the score could look bad, but it could be like a feel closer game than the score represents, if that makes sense. Sterb, who do you got?
Yeah, we got two of my more favorite quarterbacks facing against each other right here. So this is going to be a fun one for me to watch. I'm going to go with the Chargers here just because I think their defense is better. And, you got that trio of Keenan Allen, Quentin Johnson, and Ladd McConkey looked really good in week one. And it's very condensed around those three receivers. And I really don't think that Vegas has the secondary to hold up as of now. I think that could lead into some game script where, Geno's dropping back and passing for, I think he got like 350, 360 yards last week. We could honestly see it. We could honestly see that again. The Chargers defense is really good. But if you're starting Ashton Genty this week, it might be another kind of like hold on to your hat moment. I love Ashton Genty, but it's probably another not great spot for him. Regardless of that, I just think the Chargers are the better team at this moment, so I'm going to go with the Chargers.
I like it. So we all finished with the same team again in that game. I think the Chargers, right? They're just the better team at this point in time. I think that's kind of what everyone agrees with there. Moving from our game picks into our quick discussions here. Let's get into fantasy player of the week. Sterb, who's going to be your fantasy player of the week for week 2?
My fantasy player of the week for week 2 is going to be Brian Thomas Jr. We saw him have 7 targets. He had the end around. I think he got in the end zone there, but only caught one of his targets. And I think Liam Cohen against this Bengals defense is going to be looking to show up and show out, kind of show off what he can do against a backup level defense, and that may be putting it kindly. I got BTJ here. He got the usage last week, and I think he's honestly going to get more with game script. And he's a talented player. He just ran a little cold last week. I wouldn't panic on him. I'm gonna go BTJ here.
Ty, who do you got as your fantasy player of the week?
Yeah, I'm going to go with Breece Hall. Obviously, last week he looked really good against the Pittsburgh Steelers, and Buffalo allowed, the best fantasy performance from any running back with Derrick Henry. Obviously, Derrick Henry's kind of in a different league, but right, he gashed them by all means. So, and fun fact, Breece Hall, when he plays the Buffalo Bills in New York, he averages 158 yards per game. That's rushing and receiving. When he's in Buffalo, it drops to like 50-something yards per game. Right? It's a huge drop between Buffalo and New York, and it's obviously a small sample size in 4 games. But this game is played in New York, so I'm going to use that as just a piece of information. Why I think Breece Hall is going to have a really good game. But I think they're going to feature him a ton this season, obviously with Justin Fields being a running quarterback too. So Breece Hall's my guy this week.
I like it. I think that's a good pick. I'm going to go with Amon-Ra St. Brown as my fantasy player of the week. And I think it's because I expect the offense to bounce back for the Lions, not alone with Jared Goff coming back in. I think Jared Goff will kind of get his feet back under him, but a key to doing that is getting quick passes to Amon-Ra St. Brown. It's what we've seen from him in the past in the Lions offense. You got to get quick passes to him, get Jared Goff's confidence back up. And I think that's what the Lions are going to really seek after this week, is just to get Amon-Ra quick targets, get Jared Goff's confidence back up. And I think this Bears defense, it's all right. And I think they could be a top 10 defense, but they struggled against Justin Jefferson in the second half. And I think that continues with the number 1 receiver this week, even though Jalen Johnson might be a go for this upcoming game. Moving on from fantasy players of the week to hot takes of the week. Sterb, what's your hot take for week 2?
Yeah, I was debating a couple of these as we were going through the games. I debated like Geno and Kyler for some maybe passing or pass plus first numbers. I'm going to give some credit to Hammer here. He'll like this one. I'm going to go Micah Parsons 2 sacks. You got Josh Connerly, you got Laramie Tunsil as the tackle duo, but Micah Parsons, as they showed in week 1, they're not afraid to line him up over a guard and let him attack inside. And Jay Daniels, hard quarterback to sack. That's why I think it's more of a hot take that'll get 2 sacks, possibly 2.5. But I think Green Bay defense is really going to show out against this Washington offense and show that they're stamped like a top 5, top 3 defense in the league. So yeah, Michael Parsons 2 sacks.
Ty, what's your hot take in me?
Yeah, I went with the journeyman quarterback last week. I'm going to go with another one this week. And Mac Jones, 250-plus yards and 2 touchdowns. I think, we talked a lot about this game possibly being a running battle between Kamara and Christian McCaffrey. But I really think that Kyle Shanahan's going to kind of scheme it up with Mac and let him sling it a little bit. So 250 yards and 2 tuds.
Is that going to be a lot of Jake Tungus or?
Of course.
So maybe some Kendrick Bourne.
I'm kidding. Yeah, he did come back. That was a good shout out as well.
Tungus, of course. Yeah, he's got to be in there.
He's got to do something right with.
Is that your hot take? We didn't spoil it.
No.
18 receptions, 300 yards.
Oh God.
No. Obviously, I did have the Eagles as a 2 touchdown winner, but I guess with this one, I'm going to go with the Justin Fields absolutely runs all over the Bills. I think the Bills still win that game, but I think Justin Fields is going to have a huge rushing game. Obviously, the props aren't out, but I could give him 55 plus rushing yards for this game. I think he could definitely reach that as a hot take, and it might not be too hot of a take, but originally I had the Eagles, so I'm kind of going on the fly here. But I think Justin Fields runs all over. He runs all over the Bills. No, all good, Ty. All good. Anyways, that'll do it. We don't have parlays for the week yet. We're going to give graphics for those because for whatever reason, FanDuel and I believe DraftKings as well, none of them have player props out right now. So I don't know if they're just waiting till Thursday now to do that. We'll figure that out in the future. But
they're figuring out Tom just lines.
Yeah,
that's what it is.
He's
the wild card. He's the wild card that they got to account for. Anyways, that'll do it for this week's episode. We will see you guys next week in week 3. You guys know where to check us out on social media at Jenks Island and wherever you get your podcasts at Jenks Island as well. We'll see you guys next time.